Good morning and welcome to Wasdale Valley in the Lake District. In my opinion, probably the most attractive of all the Lake District valleys. One that also is particularly special to me as I used to live in Gosforth, which is at the start of this valley. But anyway, I've come here today to do the Wasdale Screes. And this walk is considered by some people to be the most challenging and the most difficult and even the most scary walk that you can do in the Lake District. And that's because of the boulder field that you need to walk through at the bottom of the Screes. Now, I've done this walk a number of times before in the past, so it's been a little while since I've done it before, but I thought I'd go and give it a shot today. I don't think it's actually quite as difficult as people often make out, but occasionally do hear about mountain rescue having to be called out to rescue people on the Screes, often having to launch their little boat that they have across Waswater to collect those that are stranded in the boulder field. But anyway, that'll be towards the end of the walk, but it's a gorgeous day, so join me. So having walked along a farm track about a mile towards the bottom of the lake, I'm going to climb now up the Screes. It's quite a steep climb, but gets most of the climbing done very early on in the walk. Just taking a little bit of a breather as I climb up the fell, and I'm looking directly west here. So just below me you can see the farm, and then a little distance beyond it we've got Never Wasdale, and then in the far distance you can make out the Irish Sea, and if you look very carefully you can probably just make out Sellafield nuclear power plant, and the village of Gosforth lies between ourselves and Sellafield, about 4 or 5 miles from where I am at the moment. So Wasdale has a number of claims to fame. It has the deepest lake in England, Waswater. It has the highest mountain in England, Scafell Pike. It has the smallest church in England, St Olaf's in Wasdale Head. And it also has the biggest lyre in the world, because there is an annual competition that takes place in Santon Bridge, just a couple of miles away from where I am at the moment, where they hold a competition for the biggest lyre in the world. As far as I'm aware, Donald Trump has never entered it, but if he did, I'm sure he would win it hands down. So I've made it to the top of the Screes, and as you can see, once you do that first steep climb from here onwards, it's actually not too difficult at all. A little bit of an incline ahead of me, but nice and easy gradient. So I'm currently walking along the old Coffin route, or Corpse Road as it is also sometimes called, that links the valleys of Wasdale and Eskdale. Now just below me in Wasdale Head, you might just be able to see a clump of trees surrounded by fields, and that is where St Olaf's Church is today. St Olaf's Church is the smallest parish church in England. But before St Olaf's was constructed, there was nowhere to bury people if they died in this valley. So they would be taken to Eskdale, to St Catherine's Church in Boot, and they would be buried there. So this path, this route, was the route that they would take the deceased from the Valley of Wasdale over to Wasdale to be buried. And this is one of a number of different coffin routes in the Lake District. So just in front of me, probably about 5 minutes walk from where I am at the moment, there's a large National Trust car park, which is where many people start their ascent to Scariest Pike from. The footpath sort of just goes straight up there. This is the most direct route to get up Scariest Pike. So when people are attempting the Three Peaks Challenge, which is climbing the highest mountains of Wales, England and Scotland in 24 hours, they approach Scariest Pike from Wasdale, from this way, because it is the quickest and shortest route to the summit of Scariest Pike. So we've now reached the shores of Wasdale, and it's actually not that far back to the car. We just have to walk along the bottom of the lake. Now, this first section of the walk by the lake is incredibly easy, no problems at all. The difficult bit, the boulder field, is actually towards the bottom of the lake, and that's where people tend to get stuck. So here we have Wasdale Head Hall Farm and some rather unusual livestock. I can't remember if these are alpacas or llamas, nor can I tell you what the difference is between them. Right, just been checking online and they were alpacas, and alpacas and llamas apparently are related, from the same family, but llamas are larger than alpacas, their hair is coarser and they have longer pointed ears, whereas alpacas are shorter and their hair is finer. So they were alpacas. So there is a sign here that says "Caution, Screes footpath. The footpath is rocky, uneven and may be slippery according to conditions. Care should be exercised at all times and extra time allowed or in poor weather conditions." It's been another dry week, so I think attempting the Scariest footpath shouldn't be too bad. If it was wet, then I think I might think twice about doing this route, simply because the rocks can be slippery, but today it should be fine. So I was very fortunate to grow up on the edge of this valley, and so this valley in many ways was my playground as a child. We occasionally came canoeing on the lake, and on the other side of the valley there's a river that goes up the fell side, and we used to climb halfway up the hill to a wonderful little horseshoe pool that we'd swim in the summer. And just on the other side of the lake, that hill there is Middle Fell, suitably named as it's in the middle of the valley. And we used to climb up there in the summer months with our beagle. We had a beagle called Sam, and we would play foxes and hounds. So we'd climb up the hill, one of us would run off and hide, and then Sam would be let loose and he would follow the scent and follow the trail and find us. And it was always a lovely thing to hear, because you could hear him yelping with excitement as he followed the scent and eventually found us. So lots of nice, happy memories. Today it's quite quiet in Wasdale because it's a Friday and it's term time. But at weekends and bank holidays and school holidays, this valley gets very busy indeed. It used not to be like that. It used to be always a very quiet valley, certainly when I was growing up, because not many people really knew about it, I suppose, or certainly not many people made the journey here, because it's quite a long way to get to, especially if you're coming up from the south. But now it's getting really busy, and I would avoid coming here in the high season. I'd avoid bank holiday weekends, and probably weekends in general actually, because it's just a nightmare. They have, however, introduced a free bus shuttle service that runs from Gosforth, goes to Never Wasdale and Wasdale Head, and that operates at weekends and I think also during the school holidays. So if you are thinking of coming to Wasdale, walking, particularly at weekends or during the holidays, then do think about using that free bus shuttle service. As I say, it saves you money, but also it helps in terms of cars coming down the valley, reduces the number of vehicles and so forth. So make use of that. If I can, I'll put a link below with more information about that free bus shuttle service. I don't know if the camera is picking that up, but there's the remains of a sheep down there, skeleton and fleece. Don't know what happened to that sheep, where it fell. It's fairly steep along here, but at the moment it's not difficult. I think once we get around the corner we'll start to see the more challenging scree. So we're now coming to the actual scree. It's a little bit further down that we get to the larger boulders, which I think is where people tend to get stuck. But at the moment the path is fairly clear and easy. You do get some really spectacular sunsets in the summer along the screes. So when the sun is setting in the west, the screes light up in this beautiful golden light. It really is spectacular.
Shadows and the moon, between the rooftops and the basement, between the scanners and the tower, the passing cars and the pavement. I remember we were young, seemed that life had just begun, and inside was a feeling I had found a place where I could stay. Between the sacred and the fake, between the leather and the patent, between the old world and the new, a broken wheel and its replacement. I remember it began with the sense of what was dead became alive.
So far, so good. If you have a dog with you, you might possibly find the dog struggles a little bit with the rocks and their small paws. One of the reasons why I didn't bring my dog today is because I wasn't entirely sure how she would cope with the rocks, especially as she's starting to get a bit stiff in her rear legs. I thought jumping around from rock to rock might not do her much good. So this is the section where I think it starts getting a little bit more complicated, and part of the issue I think is that because these are bigger boulders, there isn't an obvious path to follow, so you're sort of trying to make your own path through the boulder field. I think what I'm going to do before I go much further is I'm just going to stop, have a rest for a few minutes, take my jumper off because I'm really warm, and then attempt the boulder field. Right, off we go. I think you just need to keep an eye on where you're placing your feet to make sure that you're placing them on solid rocks or rocks that are not going to roll away, and also helpful just to have your hand free so you can grab hold of any rocks just to balance yourself. Right, I keep saying, oh, this is going to be the section that people get stuck on, and then it never transpires to be as bad as I thought it would be. I think maybe this is the section, and one of the reasons for that is because of the size of the boulders. There isn't an obvious sort of route to take. Also, if people do bring dogs along here, you can see why dogs might struggle a little bit. So the simplest way of getting through this boulder field is to have 3 points of contact with the rocks at all times. So your feet and at least one hand. And if you do that, you should be able to navigate your way through fairly easily. Although maybe I should say that once I get through to the other side. So I'm about halfway through the main boulder field. No problems at all. Just take it slow and steady. Check where you're putting your hands and your feet, and you'll be fine. Probably wouldn't bring a dog this way. Some dogs would be okay. In fact, some dogs might be absolutely fine, but some dogs might struggle. I do think that's often where people come unstuck. Their dogs just can't move and get frightened, and then they have to call out the mountain rescue. But yes, yeah, I probably also wouldn't do it if it was wet. Obviously the rocks today are nice and dry, so plenty of grip, but if it was wet it might be a bit slippy, a bit harder. But yeah, no problems at all. As I say, I've read and seen online some people saying this is the scariest, most difficult walk in the Lake District. Well, I can't judge what one person thinks is frightening or scary, because what I might think is easy, they might find scary, and what they find easy, I might find scary. But to be honest, this isn't that difficult. It isn't that scary either, but it is an interesting, fun walk to do. Having said all of that, if some of those rocks were to start coming down on top of me, then yes, that would be terrifying. In fact, there's a rock right in the middle, right at the top, that looks quite loose, and I imagine one day it will come crashing down. So there we are, navigating my way across the Screes, no problems. Just one thing I suppose to be aware of, there's obviously lots of little gaps between the rocks, so make sure if you've got anything in your pockets that they're secure, because if you drop your mobile phone, your keys or something else down one of those cracks, I think you'll struggle to get it back. But apart from that, yeah, good walk, good route. If you enjoy a bit of a scramble, it's a lot of fun. So I'm almost at the bottom of the lake, and I will rejoin the path that I walked along at the beginning of this walk and then sort of diverted, climbed up the fell. One thing I noticed when I was reading about this path on the Wasdale Mountain Rescue website, they said that quite often it's larger dogs that they're called out to rescue, such as German Shepherds, and they wondered whether one of the reasons for that is that smaller dogs are carried by their owners through the boulder field, whereas the larger dogs obviously you can't carry. Anyhow, it's a nice little spot here, very bottom end of Waswater. Across the other side of the lake is the Youth Hostel Association, and from here it's about a mile and a half walk back to the car, so a nice easy finish to the walk. So this is interesting. Temporary water provision to the river Urt in progress, protecting freshwater pearl mussels from low river levels during drought. As I said before, this has been an incredibly dry spring. In fact, you can tell by just looking here how low the lake is. Water level's normally much higher than this. It's a lovely little spot at the bottom of the lake, a little boathouse over there. So I've now reconnected to the farmer's track that I took at the start of this walk, and went up the hill behind me. So I'm going to finish the video here. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe, and please do also comment below. And until next time, take care and God bless.